My name is Jason, 35 years old, a software engineer raising two amazing kids, Emma, 8, and Liam, 6, mostly on my own since the divorce. For years, my family claimed there was no room for my children at holiday gatherings, while my sister Rebecca's twins and their massive Saint Bernard always found space at the table. I stayed silent, maintaining the peace, creating our own traditions. But everything changed this year when I purchased a luxury penthouse in Manhattan. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how my family suddenly found plenty of room in their hearts when they saw my new address. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, where the winters were harsh and family dynamics even harsher. From my earliest memories, it was clear that my sister Rebecca was the golden child. 2 years older than me, she excelled at everything she touched, or at least that's how my parents, Martha and Harold, saw it. Her mediocre piano recitals received standing ovations while my science fair victories barely earned a nod. This wasn't my childish imagination. It was a reality that shaped our family for decades. Despite the obvious favoritism, I pushed forward. I buried myself in computers and coding, finding solace in the logical world of programming, where effort produced predictable results. By 16, I was building websites for local businesses. By 18, I had earned a full scholarship to MIT, an achievement my parents attributed to luck rather than years of dedication. Boston was liberating. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who valued intellect and innovation. I thrived in the competitive environment, graduating with honors and immediately receiving offers from several tech giants in California. Silicon Valley became my new home, 3,000 miles from the family dynamics that had constrained me for years. It was during a tech conference in San Francisco that I met Amanda. Brilliant, ambitious, and captivating, she was presenting revolutionary work in artificial intelligence. I was immediately drawn to her confidence and vision. After awkwardly introducing myself at the post-conference mixer, we spent hours discussing technology's future until the venue staff politely asked us to leave. Our romance moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were married in a small ceremony on the California coast. My parents attended with reserved enthusiasm, while Rebecca made subtle comments about the hasty decision. Amanda's family, in contrast, embraced me completely. The early years of marriage were blissful. We bought a modest house in Palo Alto, working for competing firms but collaborating on passion projects at night. When Emma arrived, our lives shifted beautifully. I cut back on travel while Amanda took a brief maternity leave. 2 years later, Liam completed our family. Watching my children grow became my greatest joy, more fulfilling than any line of code I'd ever written. The first cracks appeared in our marriage when Amanda was offered a promotion that required extensive international travel. Initially, we made it work video calls, co-parenting calendars, and weekend reunions. But gradually, her trips grew longer and more frequent. When home, she seemed distracted, constantly checking emails or taking calls, even during family dinner. "They need me on this project," became her standard explanation when missing school performances or doctor appointments. I picked up the slack, becoming both mother and father while maintaining my own career. The children adjusted to the new normal, but I noticed their disappointment each time Amanda canceled plans or missed milestones. The separation was mutual but painful. After 4 years of growing apart, we acknowledged that our paths had diverged too significantly to reconcile. The divorce was finalized 3 years ago, surprisingly amicable given the circumstances. Then came the bombshell. Amanda received an offer to lead the European division of her company. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she explained over coffee, avoiding eye contact. "I've accepted the position. I'll be based in Zurich." "And the kids?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "They have their school, their friends, their routines here," she replied. "You're such a wonderful father, Jason. They're thriving with you." Translation: she was choosing career over family, leaving me with full custody. While part of me resented her decision, another part respected her honesty. At least she hadn't pretended to want a responsibility she wasn't prepared to fulfill. We arranged for summer visits and holidays in Switzerland, though these often fell through due to her unavoidable commitments. I embraced single fatherhood, creating a stable home environment, and developing new family traditions. The children adjusted remarkably well, though they occasionally asked about their mother. I never spoke negatively about Amanda, believing they would form their own opinions in time. It was during this challenging transition that I experienced the first explicit family exclusion. Thanksgiving was approaching, and my parents had recently moved to a larger house in a Chicago suburb. Naturally, I assumed we would all gather there for the holiday. About Thanksgiving, my mother said during our weekly call, her voice unusually hesitant, "We're thinking it might be best if you came alone this year. There's just no room for the kids with Rebecca's family staying over." I was stunned into silence, then managed to ask, "No room? In the new house? It has 5 bedrooms, Mom." "Well, yes, but Rebecca's twins need their own space there at that age, and with their dog, it would just be too crowded. You understand, don't you? It would be nice to have adult time anyway." I didn't understand at all. My children were well-behaved, quiet, and took up minimal space. But rather than argue, I simply said I'd think about it. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the calendar, wondering how to explain to my kids why they weren't welcome at their grandparents' house for Thanksgiving. That first rejection caught me completely off guard. I remember standing in my kitchen, phone still warm in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. My mother's words echoed in my mind. "There's just no room for your kids." At first, I genuinely believed it might be a legitimate space issue. Perhaps my parents' new house wasn't as spacious as I'd imagined. Maybe Rebecca's twins had special requirements I wasn't considering. I wanted to give my family the benefit of the doubt. After arranging for Mrs. Peterson, our elderly neighbor who adored my children, to babysit for the Thanksgiving weekend, I made the trip to Chicago alone. The 6-hour flight gave me plenty of time to rehearse what I'd say to my parents about the exclusion of their own grandchildren. But when the taxi pulled up to their new suburban address, my justifications evaporated. The house was enormous, a sprawling 2-story colonial, with a 3-car garage and extensive grounds. This wasn't a cozy bungalow with limited quarters. It was a small mansion with more than enough space for multiple families. My mother greeted me with her typical perfunctory hug, immediately launching into a commentary about my travel-wrinkled clothes and apparent weight loss. My father offered a firm handshake before returning to the football game, blaring from his massive new television. Neither asked about Emma or Liam. Then I heard the thundering footsteps of Rebecca's 9-year-old twins, Tyler and Tiffany, racing through the house screaming at top volume. Behind them bounded Brutus, their enormous Saint Bernard, drooling on the hardwood floors and bumping into furniture. Rebecca trailed after them, offering token settle-downs that did nothing to curb their behavior. "Aren't they spirited?" My mother beamed, as Tyler knocked over a side table. "Children need to express themselves." I bit my tongue, thinking of my own children's careful manners and quiet play. Emma, who could sit for hours with her books, and Liam, who built intricate Lego structures in focused silence. The house tour revealed 5 spacious bedrooms, including a dedicated craft room that sat empty except for my mother's rarely used sewing machine. Tyler and Tiffany each had their own bedroom, decorated extensively with expensive furniture and the latest gaming systems. Brutus had a dedicated dog room with a custom-built bed and an array of toys. Meanwhile, the guest room where I would sleep stood ready with fresh linens and a welcome basket. I counted the spaces in my head. My parents' master suite, 2 rooms for the twins, my guest room, the craft room, plus 2 convertible sofas in the basement recreation area. There was easily enough space for Emma and Liam to stay comfortably, even with the entire circus of Rebecca's family and residents. Dinner that evening was an exercise in restraint. Rebecca dominated the conversation with tales of her husband, Derek's latest promotion, the twins' alleged academic achievements, despite evidence to the contrary in their recent report cards, which were prominently displayed on the refrigerator, and lengthy anecdotes about Brutus's popularity at the local dog park. "We're thinking of getting another Saint Bernard," Rebecca announced over dessert. "Brutus needs a companion." "What a wonderful idea," my mother exclaimed. "This house could definitely use more love and energy." I nearly choked on my pumpkin pie. The house apparently had room for a second 180-pound dog, but not for my 2 small children. Throughout the meal, my parents lavished attention on the twins, presenting them with early Christmas gifts, expensive tablets, that the children immediately began fighting over. I received a pair of socks. "We thought you could use something practical," my father explained with a shrug. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in the guest room and video called Emma and Liam. Their faces lit up the screen, both talking at once about their day with Mrs. Peterson, the cookies they'd baked, the holiday movie they'd watched. "When are you coming home, Daddy?" Liam asked, his small face serious. "Day after tomorrow, buddy. And guess what? We're going to have our own special Thanksgiving dinner when I get back, with all your favorite foods." "Will Grandma and Grandpa ever want to see us?" Emma asked, her perceptiveness catching me off guard. "They didn't even want to talk to us on the phone today." I swallowed hard, fighting back sudden tears. "Of course they do, sweetheart. It's just complicated right now. But we have each other, and that's what matters most." After ending the call, I lay awake for hours, listening to the occasional barking of Brutus and the midnight raiding of the refrigerator by the twins. In the room next door, I could hear Rebecca and Derek laughing about something, their voices carrying through the supposedly soundproof walls. I thought about the obvious lie, "no room," and wondered why my parents couldn't have simply been honest. Was it easier to claim a space issue than to admit they preferred one set of grandchildren over another? Or was Rebecca pulling strings behind the scenes, ensuring her family received all the attention and resources? The drive back to the airport 2 days later was a relief. I had maintained a pleasant demeanor throughout the visit, refusing to cause a scene or create family drama. But inside, something had shifted. A boundary had been crossed, a truth revealed. My family had explicitly chosen to exclude my children, and for the first time, I saw the favoritism of my childhood extending to the next generation. As the plane lifted into the clouds above Chicago, I made a silent promise to Emma and Liam. They would never again have to wonder why they weren't good enough for their grandparents' home. I would create such a rich, loving environment for them that they would never feel the sting of rejection I had experienced my entire life. I just didn't realize then that this Thanksgiving rejection was only the beginning of a pattern that would continue for years to come. What started with that Thanksgiving exclusion quickly became a predictable pattern. Christmas arrived just 4 weeks later, and I naively hoped the holiday spirit might prompt a more inclusive invitation. About Christmas, my mother began during our December call, using the exact same hesitant tone she'd employed for Thanksgiving. "We're doing a small gathering this year. Rebecca's family will be staying over, and you know how hectic it gets with the twins. Perhaps you could come for just Christmas Eve dinner, alone." This time, I pushed back gently. "Mom, Emma, and Liam really want to see their grandparents for Christmas. They're asking about you." A long pause followed. "Well, it's just that the house gets so crowded during the holidays. All the gifts, the decorations, and Brutus gets anxious with too many people around. My children are people, Mom, not inconveniences. Don't be dramatic, Jason. No one said they were inconveniences. It's just not good timing. Maybe Easter would be better." But Easter brought the same excuses. "The backyard egg hunt is really designed for older children," my father explained. "And your mother is concerned about Liam's allergies acting up with all the spring flowers." The irony that Liam had no allergies whatsoever wasn't lost on me. Summer arrived, and with it, the annual family reunion at my parents' lake house in Michigan, a sprawling property with a main house and 2 guest cabins. Surely there would be room for everyone here. "The lake can be dangerous for young children," my mother cautioned. "And we've already promised the guest cabin to Rebecca's family. Brutus needs the yard to run around." Each excuse was thinner than the last. Too crowded, not enough beds, too much noise for Grandpa, who ironically wore hearing aids and regularly fell asleep during the day with the television blaring. Activities not age-appropriate, weather too unpredictable. Meanwhile, my sister's family was welcome at every gathering. Holiday photos showed the twins front and center, surrounded by mountains of gifts, while Brutus sprawled across my parents' expensive furniture. Rebecca's social media was filled with captions like, "Another perfect family holiday," and "so blessed by family time." Rather than subject my children to rejection, I created alternative traditions. When we couldn't go to Chicago for Christmas, We volunteered at a local shelter serving meals, then spent the afternoon building gingerbread houses and watching holiday movies. Easter became our adventure day, with hikes through California redwoods and picnics overlooking the Pacific. Summer weekends featured camping trips and stargazing nights that the children treasured. But despite our special traditions, the exclusion hurt. Emma, perceptive beyond her years, noticed the disconnect between our family photos and those of her cousins. "Why are Tyler and Tiffany always at Grandma's house, but we never go?" she asked one evening, scrolling through Rebecca's latest Facebook album, showing the twins opening enormous Easter baskets. "Grandma and Grandpa live far away," I explained weakly. "But you go there sometimes without us," she persisted. "Don't they want to see us? Don't they love us?" The question pierced my heart. How could I explain adult pettiness to a 7-year-old? How could I tell her that her grandparents had seemingly written her off for reasons I couldn't comprehend? "Of course they love you," I lied. "They're just set in their ways. Sometimes grown-ups have trouble adjusting to changes." Several times, I attempted to address the situation directly with my parents. During one phone call, I asked plainly, "Is there a reason you don't want to spend time with your grandchildren?" "Don't be ridiculous, Jason," my father snapped. "We're just very busy. Rebecca needs more help with the twins, they're a handful. Your kids seem pretty self-sufficient." "Because I've raised them to be," I replied, frustration mounting. "But they still need grandparents." "We'll see them, when the timing's right," he said dismissively, effectively ending the conversation. Rebecca, meanwhile, seemed to relish her position as the favored child. During my rare solo visits, she would make casual remarks that cut deep. "Divorce is so hard on children," she mused over breakfast one Easter, while my parents nodded sympathetically. I could never put Tyler and Tiffany through that. Family has to come first. The implication that I had chosen divorce, or somehow prioritized myself over my children, made my blood boil, but I maintained my composure. Rebecca had no idea how hard I worked to create stability for Emma and Liam, how many nights I spent helping with homework after full workdays, how I coordinated with teachers and coaches and pediatricians to ensure they had everything they needed. My restraint was tested most severely during a summer visit when Brutus, Rebecca's beloved St. Bernard, knocked over and shattered my mother's prized antique vase, a family heirloom passed down from her grandmother. "Oh dear," my mother sighed, surveying the porcelain shards scattered across her hardwood floor. "Well, it's just what happens when you have family over. Dogs will be dogs." I stared at her in disbelief, remembering the time 5-year-old Liam had accidentally bumped a photo frame during our last visit, merely tilting it askew without causing any damage. My mother had swiftly removed all decorative items from the lower shelves and lectured me about controlling my child. The double standard was so blatant it was almost comical. Brutus could destroy irreplaceable heirlooms and receive a loving pat on the head, while my children couldn't even occupy space in the house without being perceived as potential hazards. As the years passed, I maintained contact with my parents for my own sense of obligation, but I stopped pleading for inclusion. Each rejection reinforced what had become increasingly clear. In my family's hierarchy, my children and I occupied the lowest rung. No amount of good behavior or achievement could change that reality. What they didn't realize was that while they were busy excluding us from family gatherings, I was channeling my hurt into something productive, building a future that would eventually force them to confront their own hypocrisy. While my family situation deteriorated, my professional life took an unexpected turn toward extraordinary success. Technology had always been my refuge, a world where merit mattered more than family connections or personal politics. During those years of family rejection, I poured my frustration and creative energy into my work. By day, I maintained my senior position at a respected tech firm, leading a team developing security software. But it was my nights that ultimately changed everything. After Emma and Liam went to bed, I would sit in my home office until the early hours, working on a personal project that had consumed my thoughts for years, an algorithm that could revolutionize how artificial intelligence systems process natural language. The concept had come to me during a particularly bitter Christmas Eve, after receiving yet another exclusionary call from my mother. Unable to sleep, and feeling the familiar sting of rejection, I began sketching out code architecture on a whiteboard. What began as a distraction evolved into an obsession. For 18 months, I worked in solitude, debugging and refining my creation. The walls of my office became covered with diagrams and pseudocode. I maintained meticulous documentation while keeping the project entirely private. Not even my colleagues knew what I was building. My dedication required sacrifices. I survived on 5 hours of sleep most nights. My social life became non-existent beyond activities with my children. Dating was out of the question. Between single parenthood and my secret project, there simply wasn't time. But the work energized me in ways nothing else could. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday in March. After months of incremental improvements, I implemented a new approach to semantic parsing that increased efficiency by 600%, while reducing computational requirements dramatically. I stared at my monitor in disbelief as the test cases ran successfully one after another. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a paradigm shift. 3 major tech companies had been attempting to solve this same problem for years with entire research teams and massive budgets. I had done it alone, with nothing but determination and countless cups of coffee. After securing provisional patents, I approached several companies with a carefully prepared demonstration. The bidding war that followed exceeded my wildest expectations. Tech giants that had once rejected my job applications were now desperate to acquire my algorithm. After weeks of negotiations and consultations with attorneys, I accepted an offer from Neurasoft, a leading AI firm. The terms were staggering: $85 million up front, with potential performance bonuses that could double that figure, plus a consulting position that would allow me to maintain input on how my technology was implemented. The contract was signed with surprisingly little fanfare. Just myself, my lawyer, and 3 Neurasoft executives in a conference room in San Francisco. I remember feeling strangely calm as I signed the documents that would fundamentally change our lives. The Neurasoft CEO shook my hand firmly and said, "You've created something that will transform the industry, Jason." For 48 hours I told no one. I needed time to process this seismic shift in my circumstances. On the 3rd day, I sat Emma and Liam down for a family meeting. "I have some news," I began carefully. "My work project has been successful, more successful than I expected." "Did you get a promotion, Daddy?" Emma asked. "Something like that," I smiled. "It means we're going to have some changes in our lives. Good changes, but changes nonetheless." I explained in child-appropriate terms that we would be moving from our modest California apartment to New York City. I showed them pictures of Manhattan, Central Park, and the Museum of Natural History. Their excitement grew with each image. "Will we live in a tall building with an elevator?" Liam asked, bouncing in his seat. "Actually, yes. I found a special place for us to live. It's called a penthouse, and it's at the very top of a building near Central Park." Their eyes widened as I showed them photos of what would become our new home. A 5 to 1,000 square foot luxury penthouse with panoramic views of the city, 5 bedrooms, a media room, and a private roof garden. "Is this really going to be OUR house?" Emma whispered, staring at the images in disbelief. "It really is," I confirmed. "We'll move at the end of the school year, so you can finish with your friends here, and we'll come back to visit California sometimes." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I worked with a realtor to finalize the purchase of the penthouse. I hired an interior designer who specialized in family-friendly luxury spaces to prepare our new home. I researched the best private schools in Manhattan and secured spots for both children. Through it all, I maintained my routine at work, giving proper notice and training my replacement. Few of my colleagues knew about my windfall. I preferred to leave quietly without fanfare or jealousy. Most importantly, I said nothing to my family about these developments. My parents and Rebecca continued their pattern of exclusion, unaware that our circumstances had dramatically changed. As summer approached, with the children finishing their school year in California, I began planning for the holiday season ahead. For years, we had been unwelcome guests at family gatherings. This year would be different. This year, we would be the hosts. The penthouse was ready by early November, a spectacular space combining luxury with warmth. The designer had created personalized bedrooms for Emma and Liam that reflected their interests and personalities. The living areas were elegant yet comfortable, with child-friendly features cleverly integrated into the sophisticated design. Emma squealed with delight when she saw her room, decorated in shades of blue and silver with a reading nook overlooking the park. Liam ran circles around his space-themed bedroom, with its ceiling designed to resemble the night sky, complete with accurate constellations that glowed in the dark. The kitchen was a chef's dream, with top-of-the-line appliances and enough counter space to prepare feasts. The formal dining room could comfortably seat 14, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the city skyline. As we settled into our new life, I considered how to approach the upcoming holidays. For the first time in years, I found myself in a position of strength. No longer would we be the unwanted relations, begging for inclusion. This time we would extend the invitation. With Thanksgiving just weeks away, I casually called my mother on a Sunday afternoon. I was thinking, I said conversationally, that we might try something different for Christmas this year. "Oh?" she replied, caution evident in her voice. "Yes, the kids and I would like to host the family in New York. We've recently moved, and we have plenty of space for everyone." There was a long pause. "New York? When did you move to New York? And what do you mean by plenty of space? You've always lived in apartments." "Things have changed," I said simply. "We'd love to have you, Dad, Rebecca, Derek, and the kids stay with us for the holiday. Brutus too, of course." The uncertainty in her voice was palpable. "Well, I don't know, Jason. Your father and I usually host Christmas. It's tradition. Traditions can evolve, Mom. Think about it and let me know. We'd really love to have everyone here." I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head, weighing the disruption against her curiosity about our new circumstances. I ended the call before she could press for more details, leaving her to wonder exactly what changes had occurred in our lives. Later that week, my father called back. "Your mother and I have been talking about your Christmas invitation," he began. "And?" I prompted when he hesitated. "We're concerned about accommodations. New York apartments can be quite cramped. Rebecca's worried about the twins having enough space, and Brutus needs room to move around." I suppressed a laugh at the irony. "I can assure you there's enough space for everyone who's family," I replied, deliberately echoing the conditional acceptance they had shown us for years. "And I've arranged for a car service to pick everyone up from the airport." The mention of a car service shifted his tone noticeably. "Car service? That sounds nice. Perhaps we could make it work for a few days. Let me talk to Rebecca." Within 24 hours, my sister called. "Dad says you're in New York now? In what neighborhood?" "Upper East Side," I replied casually, "near the park. And you have enough bedrooms for everyone? The twins can't share anymore, they're at that age." "Everyone will have their own space," I assured her. "Even Brutus." Her hesitation was brief. "Well, we'd planned to stay with Mom and Dad as usual, but I suppose we could change things up this once. The twins have been wanting to see the Rockefeller Center tree anyway." "Great," I said. "Plan to stay for a week. There's plenty to see and do." After hanging up, I received an unexpected text from my mother. "Just Googled your company. Saw the acquisition news. Congratulations." So that explained the sudden interest and acceptance of my invitation. Public news of the Neurosoft deal had reached them, and suddenly my family was eager to visit. The transparency of their motivation was both predictable and disappointing. Over the next few days, calls and messages poured in. My father wanted to know if we were near any good shopping areas. Rebecca asked if the building had a gym or spa. My mother inquired about extending their stay through New Year's. As I prepared for their arrival, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also sadness that it had taken financial success to make my family interested in spending time with us. Still, I was determined to host a warm, generous holiday, not out of spite or to flaunt my new wealth, but to finally give Emma and Liam the extended family experience they deserved. The stage was set for a Christmas gathering that would finally force my family to confront years of exclusion and favoritism. I didn't plan to create drama or demand apologies. I simply wanted them to see, in the most obvious terms possible, the hypocrisy of their no-room excuses. As I reviewed the detailed preparations for their visit, the catered meals, the carefully chosen gifts, the scheduled outings around Manhattan, I couldn't help but wonder how my family would react when they saw the truth of our new situation. Would they acknowledge their past behavior, or would they pretend that nothing had ever been amiss? Either way, this Christmas would be a turning point for all of us. The cramped quarters' excuses had run their course. In our new home, there was room for everyone, if only they had the grace to recognize what they had done. The official invitation went out in early December, a professionally designed digital card featuring a tasteful photo of our penthouse's living room decorated for Christmas, with Central Park visible through the windows. The card read, "The Harrington family invites you to celebrate Christmas in our new home," followed by the dates and our address. I purposely chose an image that showed just enough of the space to raise questions without revealing the full extent of our new circumstances. My mother called within minutes of receiving it. "This doesn't look like an apartment," she said, skipping any greeting. "It's a penthouse," I replied simply. "A penthouse? In Manhattan? Those are extremely expensive, Jason." "Yes, they are." A pregnant pause followed as she processed this information. "Has something changed with your job? The last we heard, you were still with that same company in California." "A lot has changed, Mom. I'd rather discuss it when you're here." "So you'll be coming?" Another pause. "Well, of course we will. Your father and I were just discussing Christmas plans yesterday. This seems like perfect timing." Perfect timing indeed, now that there was something in it for them. My father called the next day, his approach more direct. "Your mother says you've bought a penthouse on the Upper East Side. How on earth are you affording that on a programmer's salary?" I chose my words carefully. "I'm not a programmer anymore, Dad. I developed some technology that was acquired by Neurasoft earlier this year. It's been a significant change for us." "Neurasoft? The AI company? They're enormous." His tone shifted from skeptical to impressed. "Must have been quite an acquisition." "It was suitable compensation for the work involved," I replied, deliberately vague. "Well, that's excellent news, son. Very impressive. We always knew you were smart." I bit back the urge to remind him that neither he nor my mother had ever expressed such confidence in me before. Instead, I confirmed travel details and ended the call, feeling emotionally drained by the transparent shift in his attitude. Rebecca's reaction was the most calculating. Rather than calling immediately, she spent several days researching. When she finally called, her voice was honeyed with forced casualness. "So baby brother hit the big time, huh? The tech blogs are calling your algorithm revolutionary. You've been reading about me?" I asked, genuinely surprised by her research. "Just a little Googling. Sounds like Neurasoft paid quite a premium. Rumor says 8 figures? The terms are confidential," I replied, unwilling to satisfy her curiosity. "Well, Derek and I are thrilled for you. The twins are so excited about visiting New York. They've been asking about their cousins, too. They barely remember Emma and Liam. It's been so long." 5 years, I said quietly. "It's been 5 years since they've seen each other." A brief, uncomfortable silence followed. "Well, families drift sometimes, but this will be the perfect opportunity to reconnect. Oh, and I meant to ask, is there somewhere suitable for Brutus? He's getting older and needs his special orthopedic bed." "Brutus will have his own space," I assured her, marveling at how the dog's needs remained a priority while my children's had been dismissed for years. "Perfect. And we were wondering about the sleeping arrangements. The twins really can't share a room anymore. Everyone will have their own bedroom," I interrupted, "as I've said multiple times now." "Wonderful." And Derek was curious about the building amenities. "Does it have a gym? A pool?" "Both. Plus a doorman, concierge service, and private elevator to our floor." Another pause. "Private elevator? My goodness, Jason. You really have moved up in the world." After these initial conversations, the communication became increasingly frequent and warmer. My mother called several times with questions about what to pack, whether they should bring gifts or if I had that handled, a thinly veiled question about my new financial status, and if I had decorated appropriately for Christmas. My father sent emails about Manhattan restaurants he wanted to try, casually mentioning several Michelin-starred establishments and asking if I could arrange reservations. Rebecca texted daily with updates about the twins' excitement and Derek's anticipation of seeing the famous Neurasoft offices, a hint that he expected a tour and networking opportunities. The most revealing moment came during a call with my mother 2 weeks before their arrival. After discussing travel logistics, she hesitated before adding, "You know, your father and I have been thinking about downsizing. The house feels too big these days." "Really? You've always loved that house." "Well, yes, but maintaining it is becoming a chore. We've been considering looking at condos, maybe even in other locations." "Such as?" I prompted, suspecting what was coming. "New York has always appealed to us," she said carefully. "Being closer to you and the children would be nice. And now that you're settled there..." I let the implication hang in the air for a moment before responding. "That would certainly be a change. You've always preferred Chicago. People evolve, Jason. Family should be close. Family should be close." The irony of this statement after years of keeping my children at a distance wasn't lost on me, but I refrained from pointing it out. Instead, I simply said, "We'll have plenty of time to discuss future plans during your visit." As Christmas approached, I found myself in the curious position of witnessing my family's perception of me transform, based solely on financial success. The brother and son they had marginalized for years was suddenly worthy of their time and interest. The children they had excluded were now grandchildren and cousins they were eager to reconnect with. The transparency of their motivations should have angered me, but instead, it filled me with a strange calm. Their behavior confirmed what I had suspected all along. Their rejection had never been about space or convenience. It had been about perceived value and status, the same currency that had defined our family dynamic since childhood. Now, with the tables turned, I had the opportunity to show them exactly what their exclusionary behavior had cost us: all years of potential memories, relationships, and family bonds. I wasn't interested in revenge or in making them feel small. I simply wanted them to see the truth of what they had done, and perhaps to do better in the future. The week before their arrival, I met with the interior designer for final touches to the guest rooms. Each space was thoughtfully prepared: premium linens, personalized welcome baskets, and subtle luxury touches throughout. For Brutus, I had a custom dog bed made that matched the one Rebecca had described, placed in a corner of their suite. "You've thought of everything," the designer commented. "Your family will be very comfortable." "That's the goal," I replied. "I want them to have absolutely no complaints about the accommodations. No room for excuses, just as there had suddenly become room for my children in their hearts now that we lived in a penthouse." December 23rd arrived with a light snowfall that dusted Manhattan in picturesque white. From our penthouse windows, Central Park looked like a scene from a holiday card, the trees outlined in frost, skaters gliding across the Woolman rink in the distance. Emma and Liam pressed their faces against the glass, watching yellow taxis navigate the snow-covered streets below. "When will they get here, Dad?" Liam asked for the third time that hour. "Soon, buddy. The car service picked them up from the airport 30 minutes ago." I checked my watch, estimating their arrival. "Why don't you both do one final check of the welcome baskets you made for your cousins?" The children had spent hours preparing personalized gift baskets for Tyler and Tiffany, filling them with New York-themed items, hand-drawn pictures, and small toys they thought their cousins might enjoy. Their genuine excitement about reconnecting with family they barely remembered made my heart ache. At precisely 2 o'clock, the concierge called to announce our guests had arrived. I instructed him to send them up in the private elevator, then positioned myself near the entrance, with Emma and Liam fidgeting excitedly beside me. The elevator chimed softly as it reached our floor. The doors slid open to reveal my parents standing front and center, surrounded by luggage, with Rebecca, Derek, and the twins behind them. Brutus's massive head appeared between my father's legs, the St. Bernard straining at his leash. The collective gasp was audible as they took in their first glimpse of the penthouse foyer: 20-foot ceilings, marble floors, a crystal chandelier, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Manhattan skyline. "Welcome to our home," I said simply, enjoying their stunned expressions. My mother recovered first. "Jason, this is not what I expected." She stepped forward, air-kissing my cheek while her eyes darted around, mentally cataloging every expensive detail. My father extended his hand, his grip firmer than usual. Impressive place, son. Very impressive. Rebecca remained in the elevator, her face a complex mixture of surprise and what appeared to be disappointment, perhaps, that her younger brother had achieved such obvious success. "Come on, kids," she finally said to the twins, who were standing open-mouthed. "Let's not block the elevator." As they filed into the foyer, Brutus lunged forward, nearly pulling Derek off his feet. "Sorry," he mumbled. "He's excited after the flight." "It's fine," I assured him. "We've prepared a space for him. Emma, Liam, say hello to your grandparents and aunt and uncle." My children stepped forward politely. Emma, now 10, extended her hand as we had practiced. "It's nice to see you again, Grandma and Grandpa. Welcome to New York." My mother looked momentarily startled by the girl's poise, then recovered with a tight smile. "My, haven't you grown? And so well-mannered." Liam, 8 and slightly shy, offered a small wave. "We made you welcome baskets," he said quietly. That's very thoughtful," my father replied, clearly unsure how to interact with the grandson he had effectively ignored for years. The awkwardness was palpable as the twins hung back behind their parents, eyeing their cousins with uncertainty. Tyler, now 14, had grown into a lanky teenager with his mother's sharp features. Tiffany, his twin sister, was scrolling through her phone, apparently bored by the family reunion. "Why don't I show everyone to their rooms?" I suggested. "You can freshen up, and then we'll have some refreshments in the living room." The tour of the penthouse elicited increasingly dramatic reactions. As we moved from the foyer into the main living area, with its panoramic views of Central Park and the city beyond, my mother actually gasped audibly. "This must be 5,000 square feet at least," she murmured, more to herself than to me. 5,200, I confirmed casually. Each bedroom reveal brought similar responses. My parents were assigned the largest guest suite, featuring a king-sized bed, sitting area, private bathroom with heated floors, and a balcony overlooking the park. Rebecca and Derek's slightly smaller suite adjoined 2 individual bedrooms for the twins, each decorated age-appropriately. As promised, a plush dog bed awaited Brutus in the corner of their suite. "This is bigger than our master bedroom at home," my father commented, running his hand over the premium bedding in their suite. "We wanted everyone to be comfortable," I replied. "There's plenty of room here." The pointed comment wasn't lost on my mother, whose cheeks colored slightly before she busied herself examining the bathroom amenities. After everyone had settled in and refreshed themselves, we gathered in the living room where a catering staff served hot chocolate and holiday appetizers. Emma and Liam presented their welcome baskets to the twins, who accepted them with awkward thanks before immediately returning to their phones. "This is quite a change from your California apartment," my mother observed, sipping her hot chocolate. "I had no idea tech companies paid so well these days." "It's not about the company," I explained. "I developed an AI algorithm that Neurosoft acquired. The penthouse is just one of the results of that transaction." "Derek works in finance," Rebecca interjected. "He's been following Neurosoft's stock. They've had quite a year since integrating your technology." "It's been mutually beneficial," I acknowledged. My father leaned forward. "So, ballpark figure, what does a penthouse like this cost in today's market?" "Dad," I said with a smile, "you know it's not polite to ask about money." "We're family," he insisted. "No secrets among family." The irony of this statement from a man who had kept my children at arm's length for years wasn't lost on me, but I simply replied, "Let's just say it was a sound investment in our future." The afternoon progressed with increasingly transparent attempts by my family to assess my new financial status. Rebecca commented on the obviously custom furniture. My mother inquired about the museum-quality artwork adorning the walls. Derek asked pointed questions about investment strategies and tax implications of sudden wealth. Through it all, I maintained a pleasant demeanor, neither confirming nor denying their assumptions, directing conversation back to holiday plans and activities scheduled for their visit. The children eventually migrated to the media room, where Emma and Liam had thoughtfully set up age-appropriate games and movies for their cousins. That evening, the private chef I had hired for the holiday week served a welcome dinner that further highlighted the shift in our circumstances. As we gathered around the formal dining table, a single piece of book-matched walnut that could comfortably seat 14, the conversation turned to family traditions. "We always do Christmas Eve at our house," my mother reminded everyone. "It's been that way since you children were small." "Things change, Martha," my father replied, eyeing the perfectly cooked prime rib being served by the white-gloved staff. I could get used to this kind of treatment. "Speaking of changes," Rebecca interjected, "Derek and I have been thinking about private schools for the twins next year. The public options in our area aren't challenging enough for their academic abilities." She glanced at me. "I assume Emma and Liam attend private school now?" "They do," I confirmed. "The West Side Academy. It's quite selective, but they both tested well." "Tested well?" my mother repeated. "I didn't realize they were academically gifted." "They've always been bright," I replied evenly. "You might have noticed if you'd spent any time with them." A heavy silence fell over the table. My mother busied herself rearranging her silverware, while my father suddenly found his water glass fascinating. Rebecca, never one to let uncomfortable moments linger, quickly changed subjects. "This building must have amazing amenities. Do you have access to a gym? A pool?" "Both," I confirmed. "Plus a residence lounge, private theater, wine cellar, and children's playroom. There's also a concierge who can arrange virtually anything from theater tickets to private helicopter tours." "Helicopter tours?" Derek perked up. "I've always wanted to see Manhattan from the air." "I'd be happy to arrange that for tomorrow," I offered. "Consider it an early Christmas gift." As dinner concluded and dessert was served, the conversation turned to future plans. My mother, who had been quietly observing the luxury surrounding us, suddenly announced, "You know, your father and I have been thinking it might be nice to spend more time in New York." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, perhaps look for a pied-à-terre. Something modest, of course, but it would be nice to be closer to you and the children. After all," my father added, "family should be together during important times." I nodded thoughtfully. "That's interesting to hear." I seem to recall Emma and Liam being excluded from family gatherings for the past 5 years because there wasn't enough room. Another uncomfortable silence descended. Rebecca cleared her throat. That was different. Logistics were complicated back then. "How so?" I asked, my tone still pleasant but with an edge of challenge. "Well, you were in California. For one thing, my mother offered weekly. The travel was difficult. I offered to bring them every time," I reminded her, "and was told explicitly there wasn't space. You have to understand, Jason." My father began in his lecturing tone. "Your sister's family was already established in the routine. The twins were younger then, and Brutus had his own room I finished for him. Yes, I remember seeing that during my visits. Interesting that there was space for a dog but not for your grandchildren." Rebecca's face flushed. "That's not fair. Brutus is part of our family, and my children aren't?" I asked quietly. No one had a response to this. The dessert was finished in silence, broken only by the occasional clink of silverware against fine china. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, my mother made one more attempt at bridging the growing tension. "Well, what matters is that we're all together now. Perhaps this could become a new tradition, Christmas at Jason's lovely penthouse." My father nodded enthusiastically. "We could make this an annual event, much more convenient than hosting at our place. And more impressive for our friends," Rebecca added, then immediately looked embarrassed at revealing her true motivation. "Honestly," Derek chimed in, "oblivious to the undercurrents, we could sell our house and get something nearby. Property values in our neighborhood have peaked anyway." Rebecca seized on this idea. The twins could transfer to schools in New York. They'd probably get into that academy your kids attend, Jason, with their test scores and our connections. "We're practically packing our things right now." My mother laughed, apparently thinking she was making a joke. I set my coffee cup down carefully. The room fell silent as everyone sensed a shift in the atmosphere. "It's interesting," I began, my voice calm but firm, "how suddenly there's room for my children in your lives. For 5 years, every holiday, every gathering, every family event, I heard the same excuse. There's no room for your kids. Yet Rebecca's family was always welcome. Her twins always had space. Even Brutus had his own dedicated room. I looked directly at my mother. Do you remember Thanksgiving 5 years ago? You told me the house was too crowded for Emma and Liam. When I arrived, I discovered each of Rebecca's twins had their own bedroom. Brutus had a dog room, and there was an empty craft room that was used twice a year at most. My father shifted uncomfortably. Now, Jason, Christmas that same year, I continued. Easter the following spring. The summer reunion at the lake house. Year after year of exclusion and excuses. Do you know what it's like to explain to your children why their grandparents don't want to see them? To watch them make family tree projects at school and realize they barely know half of their relatives? Rebecca's face had gone pale. We didn't mean to. You meant exactly what you did, I interrupted, still maintaining my composure. You established a family hierarchy, where my children were at the bottom, where they were inconveniences rather than family members. I turned to look at each of them in turn. And now, suddenly, when you see this penthouse, when you realize I've had financial success, there's not only room for my children in your lives, you're talking about moving closer, transferring schools, establishing new traditions. My mother's eyes had filled with tears, though whether from genuine remorse or embarrassment at being called out, I couldn't tell. I want to be very clear, I continued. You are welcome to stay for the holidays as planned. I won't rescind my invitation or make you uncomfortable. Emma and Liam deserve to know their extended family, and I won't deprive them of that opportunity. I stood up, signaling that the evening's conversation was concluding, but understand this. My children are not accessories to be acknowledged only when it's convenient or beneficial to you. They deserve better than conditional love, based on their father's financial status, and so do I. I moved toward the hallway. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check on the children. Please make yourselves comfortable. The staff will see to anything you need. As I walked away, I heard my mother's shaky voice behind me. Jason, we never meant to. I turned back briefly. Intentions matter less than actions, Mom. For 5 years, your actions have spoken volumes. Now mine will too. I left them sitting in stunned silence, surrounded by the luxury that had suddenly made my children worthy of their attention. The days following my confrontation brought a noticeable shift in the family dynamic. Christmas Eve morning dawned with an atmosphere of subdued reflection rather than festive anticipation. My parents emerged from their suite looking tired, suggesting a night of difficult conversations. Rebecca appeared similarly affected, her usual confidence diminished. Breakfast was a quiet affair, with only the children seemingly untouched by the previous evening's tension. Emma and Liam chatted happily about the day's planned activities, ice skating in Central Park, followed by a visit to the Museum of Natural History. To my surprise, Tyler and Tiffany had set their phones aside and were actively engaging with their younger cousins, perhaps sensing on some level that family connections were being reevaluated. As the children ate, my father cleared his throat and asked if I would join him in my office. Once we were alone, he sat heavily in one of the leather chairs, looking suddenly older than his 68 years. I owe you an apology, he began, the words clearly difficult for him. What you said last night, it wasn't comfortable to hear, but it wasn't wrong either. I remained silent, giving him space to continue. Your mother and I have always had a blind spot when it comes to Rebecca. It started when you were children. She struggled more, needed more attention, while you were always so self-sufficient. We fell into a pattern of giving her more without realizing we were giving you less. It wasn't about me, Dad, I replied quietly. I'm a grown man. This was about my children. He nodded, his eyes downcast. I know, and there's no excuse for that. None whatsoever. He looked up at me directly. I've failed as a grandfather. Your mother and I both have. We allowed Rebecca's demands to dictate family gatherings without considering what that meant for Emma and Liam. Or for me, I added. Or for you, he agreed. The favoritism that began in your childhood, we carried it forward to the next generation. It was wrong, Jason. Deeply wrong. His admission, while far from comprehensive, represented more self-awareness than he had shown in decades of parenting. I sensed this wasn't a complete transformation, 60-plus years of behavior, Patterns don't change overnight, but it was a beginning. Later that morning, my mother sought me out while the children were getting ready for ice skating. I found her in the living room, gazing out at the park, tears streaming silently down her face. "I spent the night looking at photos on my phone," she said without preamble. "I have hundreds of pictures of Tyler and Tiffany growing up, school plays, birthdays, holidays. And then I realized I have almost none of Emma and Liam, my own grandchildren, and they're strangers to me." She turned to face me, her expression haunted. "How did I let this happen?" "One decision at a time," I answered honestly. "One excuse at a time." I told myself we were just busy, that the distance made it complicated. But that was never true, was it? We made time for Rebecca's family despite the same distance. We made room for them, just not for yours. I nodded, acknowledging the truth of her statement. "I can't undo the past 5 years," she continued. "But I want you to know I hear you. What you said last night was painful but fair, and I'm deeply sorry for the hurt we've caused." Her apology, like my father's, felt genuine if incomplete. There was no attempt to justify or minimize their actions, which I took as a positive sign. Rebecca proved more resistant to self-reflection. When she approached me that afternoon while the children were choosing ornaments for the tree, her initial posture was defensive. "You really blindsided us last night," she began, arms crossed tightly across her chest. "Did I?" I asked mildly. "Or did I finally say what needed to be said after years of silence?" She fidgeted uncomfortably. "Look, I know things haven't been perfectly balanced." "Perfectly balanced?" I echoed. "Rebecca, your children and dog have been welcome at every family gathering for years while mine were explicitly excluded. That's not an imbalance. It's a complete absence of consideration." Her defenses crumbled slightly. I didn't think of it that way. I just accepted what Mom and Dad said about space limitations. Even though you knew it wasn't true, you saw the same house I did. You knew there was room." She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I was focused on my own family's needs. I didn't stop to question whether the arrangement was fair to yours. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of her role in the dynamic, but it was something a crack in the wall of entitlement she had built around herself and her family. "Your children deserve to know their cousins," I said more gently, "and Emma and Liam deserve to know theirs. We can't get back the years already lost, but we can do better going forward." She nodded slowly, her posture relaxing slightly. "The twins really like Emma and Liam. They've barely looked at their phones all morning, which is practically a miracle." It was a small olive branch, and I accepted it as such. Christmas Day arrived with a tentative warming of relations. The morning gift exchange revealed that my parents had hastily purchased additional presents for Emma and Liam. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtfully chosen items that suggested they had paid attention to the children's interests over the past 2 days. Emma received a beautiful illustrated edition of her favorite book series, while Liam was given a complex Lego set that aligned perfectly with his passion for construction. Both children expressed genuine delight, and my parents beamed at their reactions. My own gifts to the family were deliberately measured, neither extravagant enough to suggest I was flaunting my wealth, nor modest enough to imply lingering resentment. For my parents, I had commissioned a photo book tracing our family history, including many pictures of Emma and Liam they had never seen. For Rebecca and Derek, tickets to a Broadway show they had mentioned wanting to see. For the twins, the latest gaming console they had been asking for all year. The afternoon was spent preparing Christmas dinner together, not with the hired chef, whom I had given the day off, but as a family in the spacious kitchen. My mother and I worked side by side preparing vegetables, while my father and Derek tackled the turkey. Rebecca supervised the dessert preparation, with all the children helping to decorate cookies. The scene was domestic and ordinary, in the best possible way, the kind of family gathering I had envisioned for years but had never experienced. There were still moments of tension and old patterns threatening to reassert themselves, but they were met with new awareness on everyone's part. During dinner, my father raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said simply, "and to second chances." The remainder of their visit passed with continuing adjustments to the family dynamic. There were awkward moments, certainly, but also glimpses of what healthier relationships might look like. The twins began to show genuine interest in their younger cousins, teaching them card games and including them in activities. My parents made noticeable efforts to engage with Emma and Liam, asking about their interests and listening attentively to their answers. On the day before their departure, my mother hesitantly approached me about Easter. "We were thinking," she began, "that perhaps you and the children might come to Chicago. Not because we expect it," she added quickly, "but because we'd like to start making amends. The guest rooms will be ready for all three of you." "We'll consider it," I replied, neither accepting nor rejecting the invitation outright. "Let's take things one step at a time." As they prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside for a final conversation. "Your success didn't change who you are, Jason," he said quietly, "but it forced us to see ourselves more clearly. I'm not proud of what I saw, but I'm grateful for the wake-up call." I nodded, acknowledging both his insight and his humility in expressing it. "It was never about the penthouse, Dad. It was about making room in your hearts." "I know that now," he replied, "and I hope we still have time to do better." The months following that Christmas visit brought gradual but noticeable improvements. My parents called regularly to speak with Emma and Liam, sending thoughtful cards and small gifts for no particular occasion. Rebecca's family established a monthly video chat with us, allowing the cousins to maintain their newfound connection. When Easter approached, we accepted my parents' invitation to Chicago. The visit wasn't perfect, old habits occasionally surfaced, but the effort to change was evident. My parents had converted the former craft room into a dedicated space for Emma and Liam, decorated with consideration for their interests and preferences. Most tellingly, Brutus was kept primarily in the backyard during our visit rather than having free reign of the house as in years past. This simple adjustment spoke volumes about the shifting priorities within the family. By the following Christmas, we had established a new tradition alternating holidays between New York and Chicago, ensuring that all members of the family had equal opportunities for connection. My parents had not moved to New York as they had impulsively suggested, but they had begun spending more time there, renting an apartment for month-long visits several times a year. Rebecca's initial jealousy of my success gradually gave way to a more balanced relationship. Her twins developed genuine affection for their cousins, and the age gap that once seemed insurmountable became less significant as they discovered shared interests. As we gathered in my parents' modestly decorated living room that second Christmas, a stark contrast to the luxury of my penthouse, but warm and welcoming in its own way, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The catalyst for change had been my financial success, which forced my family to confront their behavior. But the healing had come from something more fundamental: the willingness to acknowledge harm, the courage to speak difficult truths, and the commitment to do better going forward. Perfect endings don't exist in real families. There would always be moments of tension, old wounds occasionally reopened, patterns that resist complete transformation. But better beginnings were possible, and we had made one. My children now had relationships with their grandparents and cousins, relationships that were still developing but were based on genuine connection rather than obligation or advantage. The path forward would require continued effort from all of us, but the foundation had been laid. As I watched Emma helping my mother arrange ornaments on the tree while Liam and the twins collaborated on building a snow fort in the backyard, I realized that the most valuable lesson from our journey wasn't about wealth or status. It was about the courage to stand up for those you love, to establish boundaries when necessary, and to remain open to healing even after significant hurt. Love, I had learned, wasn't measured in square footage or demonstrated through material generosity. It was shown through consistent presence, through making space in your life and heart for others, through prioritizing relationships even when inconvenient. That night, as we gathered around the dinner table, all of us together in my parents' modest home, I felt a sense of peace that no luxury penthouse could provide. We were not a perfect family, but we were a family working to be better. And in the end, that effort, that commitment to growth, was worth more than any acquisition or success I had achieved. So what about you? Have you ever had to confront family members about unfair treatment or favoritism? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, Sometimes standing up for yourself is the greatest gift you can give to those you love. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to create healthy boundaries in your own family relationships.